Welcome back. In this session, we'll talk about how to find and use web resources legally. And that, of course, is an issue of copyright. We'll speak mostly about American copyright, but this increasingly applies in a very similar fashion to every nation across the world because copyright is kind of a global issue. And one of the issues is that the rights of the laws of copyright in every country are at least slightly different. So copyright is, in fact, a law, a national law, and it protects the rights of a copyright holder. Now that might be an artist, a writer, a photographer, or the person who owns the rights to those, like a movie company owns the rights to a movie, even though they didn't personally make it. The rights are exclusive, meaning only they have the rights. These aren't shared rights, and it's the rights to a work. Now, what's a work? In the legal sense, it is a fixed creative expression of an idea. Fixed meaning it has a physical embodiment. It's not just the sound that goes through the air, but it's sound that's on a recording, let's say, on a CD or in a computer file, or text that's on a paper book. And it needs to be a creative expression, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So ideas cannot be copyrighted, only the fixed creative expression of ideas. Mathematics, for example, mathematical formulae cannot be copyrighted because there's only one way to write that formula often, and you can't copyright something like that. So what does copyright give the copyright owner the rights to? To 5 things. They have the right to reproduce the work, to prepare derivative works, meaning works that derive or come from the copyrighted work. So the Disney company holds the rights to Mickey Mouse. If they wanted to create a new character, Monsieur Mouse, by putting a mustache on Mickey, that would be a derivative work, and they have the rights to do that. If you or I wanted to do that, we do not have the rights to, we can't draw a mustache on Mickey Mouse and say, well, that's our work. No, because it's derived from or built on a copyrighted work. So the copyright holder can publish the work or publicly perform or display the work. Well, our big question is, how can we use these materials often found on the web legally? Well, there are about 6 ways. Commonly, a company will purchase the rights to use a copyrighted image or a copyrighted piece of music. A school or a church may request the permission to use a photograph or a piece of music, and if they get that permission in writing, then that is legal. We'll talk about fair use and Creative Commons shortly. Public domain means that the copyright is maybe expired, or maybe it's too old. Maybe a work like a work from a photograph from the American Civil War predated copyright, or any of the famous Renaissance paintings or early Baroque music. None of that can be copyrighted. But also works by the federal government or owned by the federal government. Since the government is an embodiment of us, it cannot hold the rights. So any photos from NASA, for example, are copyright free. And anything you make yourself, so anything you or your students write or draw or photograph or record, is instantly copyrighted, and whoever did that is the copyright owner. So, fair use means there are ways of legally using copyrighted works that are just unregulated. For example, you could hang a copyrighted photograph in your own home, and since you're not publicly displaying it, that's no big deal. The fair use is especially liberal for educators, especially in the US. So there are four characteristics, or four categories of fair use under which copyrighted works may be used. The first has to do with the purpose of the work. So here's a silly example, but the content in a newspaper is copyrighted by the news company. Let's say that you worked in a fish market and you wrapped a customer's fresh fish in a newspaper and gave it to them. Well, the purpose of the newspaper was news, not to wrap the fish. So you're allowed to use a copyrighted work if its use is different from what it was intended. Similarly, any copyrighted work may be used in news, in a newsletter, a news broadcast, and in humor, in parody of that, because someone didn't take a photograph of, let's say, the Pope, for it to be made fun of, for it to be parodied. So the purpose is different, therefore it's legal. The nature of a copyrighted work, something in science, a phone book, a list of facts, there's nothing creative about that. It can't be copyrighted, or you may use it freely. The way that you quote something in a paper, you're using a less than critical portion. So you can quote it, and you are legally allowed to reproduce it then. If it were a large part of the work, or the most exciting part perhaps, you may not be permitted to do that. And of course, it can't take money away from potential sales, away from the copyright owner. It can't harm the marketability of the work. So, Creative Commons is an amazing system that arose, I'm going to say, in the last maybe 12 years. And whereas normally written permission is needed, a Creative Commons licensed work, it's a copyrighted work, but the author gives advance permission for certain uses of the work. So, for example, let's say that you're a photographer, but you wanted any nonprofit organization to be able to use it, any school. You could put that as an advance permission, so the schools would not need, or a nonprofit organization wouldn't need written permission. We'll take a look at Creative Commons in a moment. The categories of Creative Commons licensing show you what you're allowed to do, what rights the copyright holder has given to you for a specific purpose. So the most common is, let's say, a photograph or a musical piece, and you can use that any way you want as long as you attribute its owner. In other words, you say, this is a photo by Mark Johnson, or this is a musical piece by the Beatles. Non-commercial means that, yes, you can use it however you want as long as you don't charge for it. So let's say there is a work, a Creative Commons work, that could be performed for a school assembly. If you don't charge admission, that's permissible. If you do charge admission, then you would have to purchase the rights or get written permission. And the ND is no derivatives. So an artistic photographer may say, you may use my photograph, but you have to use it in its entirety without modification. You may not crop it, you may not colorize it, you may not add to it. So again, the most common Creative Commons license is the attribution license, where you only have to say who the photograph or the music or the poem is by. So Here are websites where you can find images and some other copyrighted works on the web. CreativeCommons.org is kind of a master site. Google.com, the search, is a master site for images, so is everystockphoto.com. And we won't go to Wikipedia or YouTube, but any image in Wikipedia, to upload an image to Wikipedia, you have to say, anyone has the rights to use this any way they want. And for most YouTube uploads, the uploader also has to say that anyone can use that video pretty much however they want. But let's take a look at some of these sites. So here's Creative Commons, and all you have to do is I want to zoom in a bit on this, if I can. Yeah, okay. So you just go to creativecommons.org, and you can license your own work in that way if you want. Find out about public domain. But if you scroll down a bit, there's a Find Creative Commons material. Okay. Well, how about if you search for, let's search for child with iPad. Okay. And if we search for that, we come up with a number of sites that would hold such images. Now I know that I want images. If I wanted music, I'd go here to Jamendo. If I click on Flickr, I go to the Flickr photo sharing sites, and the only photos that I'm showing, that will be shown to me, are those for which commercial use and modifications are allowed. Let's take a look at a Google search. So let's just go to google.com. If we select images and enter, again, let's do child with iPad. We get lots and lots of images, but some are copyrighted, some are not. If we go to the Search Tools button, we have the option of selecting usage rights. Right now, it's not filtered by license, so we can say we want it for non-commercial use with modification. Okay, let's take a look at everystockphoto.com. Everystockphoto.com has almost 30 million, or is it 30? Yeah, 30 million free photos. So if we put in child with iPad, and here's an iPad image, and let's take a look at what this is telling us. Okay. So note that there's the attribution license icon, the little person. That means we may use this photo as long as we say it's by Blake Spot. Right? Until next time, bye for now.